Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
So we're watching the sun, and look at that. Boom, boom, boom.
And it sneezes.
Yes, it definitely did. So we have a major X-class flare. It's an X1, and it is from the Earth-facing sunspot AR 2887. So this blast at 1535 UTC on October 28th created a massive tsunami of plasma in the sun's atmosphere. And, interesting too, because there was two M-class flares as well. We might be in for, some interesting times. There's so much going on right now. It's just mind-boggling to keep up with. Actually, I thought we were going to be doing a video with a message from Yeshua that we just channeled, as well as, some interesting historical additions to that video. But with a couple of things happening, we felt like we have to go this route first, just to keep you guys abreast of what's going on. So you can see here, it's just basically touching the X class. Still, X class itself is the highest classification. And we're going to have to see what happens. Of course, right off the bat, I said to Cindy, La Palma, because, when you have these flares, for one, there's always the potential of some sort of disruptions, satellite disruption, power outages, things like that, but also volcanic and earthquake activity tends to, get stronger. And so, asked her what's going on, anything from the guides on this.
Well, it's a little bit complicated. What they don't want is for any major catastrophes, because that just interrupts human evolution. They do have a way with their consciousness to try to, that's what I'm looking for, to make it so that anything that might be catastrophic won't be so bad, to kind of cushion things.
Yeah, they're trying to mitigate the negative effects of this. And they actually could. And when we're talking about we're talking about the Galactic Federation, along with beings like Yeshua and other beings that we would put up in the angelic or the Davic realms. So there are benevolent beings that are out there protecting us in many ways that they're allowed to, because of universal law, so to speak. And of course, the negative entities, they just do whatever they can. They don't really care so much. They do it in a sly way so they don't get the law of cause and effect slapping them back in the face, as we were talking about, as we have talked about on thousands of videos, that they have to kind of tell us certain things. As long as they kind of tell us, then it's like, well, you knew. Or if you say, if you're being faced with, having your arm twisted to do something, and you go ahead and do it because it's going to, make your life a little bit easier, allow you to keep going on kind of with normalcy. Well, you made that choice. You chose to. Yeah, this is how that works. Whereas these beings, they want to help us as much as they can, but they don't want to interfere in our experience, because again, this is a temporary ride. Even though it might feel that you are your body, you're not your body. You're not your body. Your body's only your vehicle for this ride. But getting back to this, so we did have strong shortwave radio blackout centered on South America as well. Again, there is the potential for an uptick in earthquake activity, as well as volcanic activity, and perhaps even La Palma. And you were picking up on that too. A lot of people will. Well, there was one or two people that I had never seen before make comments, so they must be new to the channel. And we were talking about how there's technology out there to influence perhaps the weather, influence perhaps earthquakes or hurricanes. There's technology that could steer things. It's actually declassified. But they were, just basically saying it's all natural, it's all cycles, just go study the science. Well, we could study the science, but you have to look at who's giving you the science in the first place. And hasn't that science been constantly rewritten? how many times has it been rewritten? So again, look to your own intuition, really. That's the thing. Listen to that quiet little still voice that's telling you something. More people will be doing that as we go deeper into this cycle. So yeah, CME, very likely. Again, it's all just more reason to be prepared. And there's something going on in the ocean in the Pacific off the shore of Okinawa. And it could be something extremely large and volcanic because there's an awful lot, massive amounts of pumice stones. Pumice, either, I guess.
Yep.
And I'm sure I'll have corrections going.
You will.
Correct me all
It's
day long.
okay though.
It's okay.
We'll take it.
Yeah, washing ashore in Okinawa may affect nuclear power plants. You would think that Japan would have shut down all their nuclear power plants by now, would you not?
I would think so.
Yeah, so definitely has to be an underwater volcanic eruption going on. And it's interesting because, again, when you look to some of the prophecies, like not just Edgar Casey, but, he immediately comes to mind. He talked about new land rising in the Atlantic and the Pacific. It's almost like the rebirth of Atlantis and Lemuria in so many ways.
Right. It is.
It is. It's very interesting times, to say the least. And we were talking about a Medicaine before. And Medicaine Gloria is going to stall near Sicily and Malta before making the landfall over Libya. Interesting, and sure, it could be a front coming and pushing down and slowing its progress. But as we said, the technology's there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw with Florence in the Carolinas, I had never seen a hurricane move at 1 mile an hour before. 1 mile an hour? I remember all the, the weather forecasters and stuff saying, well, this is unusual.
Right? Yeah, I know. Just when something kind of goes and then just stops. It just stops and sits there and shows its viciousness and its fierceness, and it's never been seen before. It's really odd how that seems to happen nowadays.
Yeah, so you're going to have 15-foot waves over in this area around Sicily and Malta. Gorgeous area, beautiful area. Definitely would be a bucket list thing to do as far as a trip. Gloria, though, is already responsible for at least 3 deaths in Catania after it brought an entire year's worth of rain in 48 hours. So think about now that system with all that massive water, it's just going to stall and stay in place.
Mm-hmm.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Indeed, it is.
And we did a recipe today. We did some Thai soup.
It was so good.
And yeah, it was. And it, got both of our noses running.
You did.
Because, there's some chilies in there and all that. Galangal, any of you know galangal? It's basically a rhizome related to ginger, but it gives a distinct flavor to some Thai cuisine, fresh cilantro, fresh basil, lots of good veggies. It was yummy, coconut milk in there.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and so we had talked about that one. And now going on to the other major topic that just seems to be ramping up, and up. Chinese state media vows military will show up at U.S. doorstep soon and China will win. Yeah, this is actually not the first time that we've been hearing this from various sources. Of course, they have their own official papers, news reporting channels, things like that are state-run now. And you're hearing this now. You're hearing these statements now. A lot of people are paying attention now. They weren't before. Many people were just saying it's the same old stuff. It's just trying to distract us. Just fear porn. And now you get an awful lot of people say it's inevitable. It's inevitable. You can see what's coming, and there's a lot of signs. So yeah, Global Times media outlet published an op-ed from its editorial board on Wednesday, vowing that China's military will soon confront the U.S. in a hostile exchange. The U.S. will definitely see the PLA show up at its doorstep in the not-too-distant future. The two sides' warships and aircraft on the seas will carry huge mutual strategic hostility, and the two countries will not yield to each other. Once the situation gets out of control and triggers military clash between China and the U.S., we must give full play to our home field advantage. China will definitely win once there's a war. And, you know, as we've said, this is actually not the first time we've heard this. And when we look at what's going on, the people that are watching the military movements, there's been tremendous military activity at every air base that I'm hearing from you guys that you're sharing with us. Hey, you know, awful amount of activity. Never seen it this busy. And, you know, it's coming out of all sorts of areas. So USS Seawolf here, Seawolf class attack submarine coming into San Diego and immediately heading right back out. No break, no rest, no couple days leave on shore. Nope. Just come in, get what supplies you need, get right back out there. That's kind of like wartime activity. And when you see it not just in one location, but you start to see it in other areas as well, and other ships, Jimmy Carter coming on in, heading back out, and all the movement that we've seen really with, you know, China and Taiwan has been kind of overwhelming. China military aircraft buzzed Taiwan air defenses 10 days in a row. It's just a daily thing. It's a daily testing, and you get used to it. You know, if you're in school and you're walking down, you know, the hallway, and every morning when this one bully sees you, as he's going by you, he makes this like gesture, like he's going to shoulder ram you or something. At first, you know, you back up, you know, or you're like, whoa, whoa. And eventually you just kind of like, you see it, but you almost ignore it. And then whack, next thing you know, you're on the ground. What happened? Over 800 PLA aircraft have entered Taiwan's ADIZ zone since since it started back in September of 2020, and it just shows you all the flight paths. So a lot of poking, a lot of prodding, a lot of testing, and, you know, perhaps a lot of getting everybody used to this, to where it kind of like desensitizes you for when the real move comes.
That's another one of their favorite games is desensitization.
Yeah, so you see here, according to local rumors, China Navy will also make the first flight of a carrier-borne stealth fighter in October. And there's some photos there. The new technology that's coming out of China and Russia is amazing. And this is to, again, be accentuating the fact that it's, again, who the banking cabal is getting behind.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have the funding. You know, they have unlimited zeros in their bank account. They could just make more.
Right. You know, just hit the keyboard many times as you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to tire out somebody's finger.
Yeah, right.
U.S. ships and planes conducted 2,000 spying missions aimed at China this year, says military analyst as well. Another good reason just, you know, to be as prepared as possible. And then this is India today. China continues to bully neighbors to suit its security and economic interests, so says the Pentagon. And, you know, this does include India when you talk about that hot border that they have there. Interesting, too, because, you know, there's so many forecasts that show that China will only have maybe a 20-year window of dominance, and then India, you know, if the world was to keep progressing as it is, we should say, then India would rise to actually be stronger than China.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, they're shooting for one global system. And they do have a global system right now, but it's a global system that's veiled in illusions.
Well, they want their whole ball of wax. They want everything right there. They want it more convenient.
Yeah, so, you know, again, all the more reason to be as prepared as possible. And, you know, I know that, you know, there's a couple comments that come up, and, you know, some people, they just don't want to hear it anymore because it it's just kind of doom and gloom to them, or they're prepped. They've been ready for 10 years or whatever, 20, 30, 40 years. They're prepped. They got this thing down. We have one friend in North Carolina that we go down into his large basement. They could live in that basement for a decade. They have enough food and armaments and everything you would need. That they're good, so that's fine. But there's so many people that are waking up for the first time that don't even have a week's worth of food. They don't have any way of protecting themselves. They don't have any way of heating themselves, keeping them warm. If the power goes out, they might lose their water supply. They have no idea what to do. They don't even have. So many people are just finally waking up. One of our good family members, who you guys have probably heard us reference before, we were just talking to him. Now he's been talking to his wife and kids for forever about all this, and now they realize that he wasn't crazy, and now that's hitting them, and it's causing an awful lot of anxiety because they're like, "Oh my God, he was right. Oh no, we could have helped him prepare. We could have done more. We could see everything that's going on in this world, and instead of just poking fun at him, they could have been proactive with him, and they would have been in maybe a little bit better shape than they are. But they're pretty well because he took care of things. Preparing for war with China over Taiwan. The interesting thing here is like the statement, which is exactly how it feels to me. Xi Jinping's China looks a lot like Hitler's Germany in 1938, bullying the world to appease its territorial demands before it moves towards even more aggressive expansion. And, it does feel a lot like 1938. I've been thinking in my head, is it 1938 or is this actually 1939? Because it was in 1939 when the first move that Hitler did was he blitzkrieged Poland, which took them no time to steamroll Poland. Poland was basically defending itself on horses up against panzers. It didn't take long. And, the Polish people suffered so much in World War II, and they were occupied for so long. And we were talking about what happened to the Ukraine. Again, we got to know the history to understand mentally what we can face. And we want to, again, put out the best intentions, because the galactics will tell you it still doesn't have to be this way. If we could wake up enough people, we could still avert these things. But every day that goes by, and there's not enough people waking up, it's a slow, steady walk towards looking at a situation very, very similar to what we had in 1939. Again, he who doesn't learn history, even if it is his story, may be doomed to repeat it. And this is also where we have to prioritize that regular spiritual practice, the meditative practice, things like yoga and Qigong, stilling the mind. Cindy and I have, basically, we're going to practice a lot more fun.
Yes.
And not that I find meditation fun, I find yoga fun and Qigong fun, but
More purposeful fun.
more purposeful fun.
Yeah.
Creative, so we're going to actually be doing a lot more music together, and trying to rise our vibrations that way, and with a sense of gratitude too, because even though we're here in times that are trying, and they have been trying, and it looks like they're getting even more trying, there is a gratitude, because I see so many beautiful people and so many wonderful souls. We've been blessed with so much, as far as so many good friends and people we really enjoy, even though we're not there with them and we're thousands of miles apart. You can feel the love, and you got to give gratitude for that. And hey, we're going to weather this storm. We're going to weather it. We're going to ride it out. You got to be prepared. Can you imagine going on a roller coaster and not being strapped down, especially when it's going to go upside down?
Right. I mean, you need your emotional preparedness. That's number one. You know, once you get that down and you have your spiritual practice and you know how to center yourself, you know yourself well enough how to center yourself, then you can take all of these things that life has to throw at you.
Exactly. So this is the United States Navy News Fleet and Marine Tracker, and you can see you have a lot of forces concentrated over in the Pacific, basically off the coast of Japan and China, as well as in Southeast Asia there with the Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group. The Essex is over there in the Mid-East, and then this was curious. There's basically exercises. They're terming them exercises going on in the Atlantic. But you have three groups in the Atlantic, the Harry S. Truman, the George H.W. Bush, and the Kearsarge. They're all over there in the Atlantic. So that just struck me as a little bit different. I haven't seen that like that before. 87 ships underway from what they're saying. That's not spectacular. Um, but the fact that, the three of them over there in the Atlantic having exercises and the rest of the balance of the power mostly being really in the Pacific is kind of interesting. And if I'm playing chess, it kind of feels like if you're going out and you're pushing your pawns out on the queen side, trying to penetrate the defenses of your opponent, you're really pushing strong on one side while withholding in on the other side a protective force around your own king for people that are playing chess out there. So I just thought it was interesting to note because I just haven't seen them being deployed like that before. And so they're now going to be charging a fee that is making some shippers nauseous. Yeah, and crazy California port fees. The cure is worse than the disease, say critics of an emergency plan of the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, backed by number 46's administration. If you think port congestion is bad now, just wait for what comes next. On Wednesday, 2 days after the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach announced a surprise emergency fee for containers lingering too long at terminals, the National Shippers Advisory Council held its inaugural meeting at NSAAC, created to advise the Federal Maritime Commission, is composed of 12 U.S. importers and 12 exporters. Members include heavy hitters like Amazon, Walmart, Target, Office Depot, and IKEA, which all those corporations will be there in the one order that's to come.
Mm-hmm.
And most likelihood, again, all the mom and pops, all the little stores, and even the smaller corporations will be wiped out. And yeah, you just have that one choice. That's it, just one choice. Starting November 1st, the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are going to charge $100 per container for boxes dwelling 9 or more days that move by truck, and those dwelling 6 days or more move by rail. The fee will increase $100 every day. It will be charged to the carriers, which will then almost certainly pass on the fee to the shippers, meaning it's going to be the equivalent of an escalating demurrage charge. As far as the hyper demurrage announced in Los Angeles, Long Beach, I think it will be catastrophic. Ultimately, this is all going to be basically impacting and making everything even more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
We've noticed the prices going up. We were saying in that next to last video how we view whatever food we have stocked up right now as money in the bank, because whatever you pay today, it's going to be more tomorrow.
Yep.
And all this is going to add to that. It's going to add to all, and again, why are they doing this? Well, again, they always seem to do things that may look at surface value as logical, but then it always seems to screw things up more.
Always, they're really good at it.
Right?
I know, it's horrible. It keeps happening over and over and over.
everything that's going to lead to just, rampant hyperinflation and, get us to that $12 gallon of milk quicker. That seems to be the choices that they make.
It's coming.
And I know not everybody drinks milk. We really don't either. But we do want to thank our Patreons, because we couldn't do this without you guys. Your support on Patreon, also on Ko-Fi. It enables us to keep going in these times of the big C word that has to do with the First Amendment, if you know what we are talking about
we are
there.
so grateful. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And again, please do double check. Make sure you are subscribed. Remember, we're on Rumble, and we're also on Brighteon as well. Things ever go more south on YT land. And maybe that'll be renamed, as Facebook's going to be renamed Meta.
Yeah, I know. If anybody has any clues about that, I'm curious what the story is behind that.
I think they should just rename themselves. We know that they own Instagram, so why don't they just go FBI?
Just do FBI.
Just get it out in the open now.
Open, for sure. Good idea.
You might as well.
Let's do it.
FBI, it makes sense.
It does, and it fits.
Or you could just
the shoe fits.
Call things BB for Big Brother.
I like that too.
That makes things sense too. Why don't we just lump, say like Amazon, Facebook, and Alphabet even, and all these into just one new mega corporation called BB.
Yeah, let's just do it.
BB,
that
that's
works.
all.
It fits.
And we could put a face up there with a very, very short little mustache under the nose only.
Like really thin and short, just under the nose.
Yeah, with stern-looking eyes.
Yeah, and some red paint.
Yeah, red
a sickle,
paint. Maybe a hammer and a sickle and some stars.
Yeah, I think that'll be very fitting.
Yeah, that would be a good new logo. Might as well. As always, guys, God bless and namaste.
Namaste.